hoping I could get a word with your expectations, 'cause they don't seem to be based on you and me. And you've been making group decisions about us without us. Tell me what I'm gonna say and let me edit. I think it could be different if you let it. I should hang up the phone, you said maybe don't. And I think I should go, you said maybe don't. 'Cause I'm running from the things that I want the most. You said I get that's what you feel, but baby.
Hello, God bless, and I'm really glad everybody's able to join us today. How's everybody doing?
Hey, doing great, Stephen.
Yep.
I mean, Proverbs guy.
Hey, Stephen. How you doing?
It's all good. It's all good. So I wanted to start tonight off by sharing a really scary statistic with you guys. This is from Pew Research. By the year 2045...
Can't hear anyone.
By the year 2045,
Right
if we don't lose a single Christian to atheism or another religion, we will still become the minority religion by 2045. That's if we don't lose a single believer and still gain more.
Wow.
And they're still falling out of the middle right now, currently, like masses.
A mass exodus from the Western churches. Meanwhile, though, over in Iran, where they literally face physical persecution, as in torture or death for their faith, they're having the largest revival they've ever seen. More Iranians have come to Jesus in the past 20 years than in the past 6 centuries. Let that sink in.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's wonderful.
But do you guys know why their numbers are going through the roof and ours are crashing?
Because they're suffering.
They're suffering.
Persecution.
Because the Holy Spirit's actually working there.
Yeah, that's when we call out, is when we are under just oppression or affliction. It's the natural human instinct, like we can't deliver ourselves from something.
Yeah, persecution actually emboldens people. It strengthens your faith. And all these people that do the persecuting, they don't understand that. They just want to keep doing it anyway. It's like, you're just making us stronger and more dedicated, because it's an honor to suffer for Jesus. We haven't really gotten any serious persecution here yet, but I think it's coming. And maybe for me personally, as I make myself more visible out in this online.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen anything close to the persecution that's coming here, though. Like,
and I think
not
America,
even a taste of it.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was sorry. We talk over each other. In America, our culture is like fat heifers.
Mm-hmm.
We have everything at our fingertips. We have majority, or we're one of the cultures that has the majority of resources, and we just have our creature comforts so badly that people are bored and they want to be animals. And
it's slothfulness. Western and especially American Christians are physically, but even worse spiritually, fat and lazy. Myself included.
It's not even them, though. I mean, the culture in general, the secular culture, compared to other third world countries.
Well, I think the word is they use as decadent. We've become decadent.
That's a good word.
Yeah. We've just gotten soft and lazy, like Proverbs guy says. Yeah. I mean, now I will say that in the past few years, God has given me a great awakening, and I'm sure He's done that with many other people as well. It's definitely opened my eyes, and I think totally different than the way I did 5 years ago, or even more recent, 4 years ago, maybe. or 3 years
Yeah.
ago.
Well,
Yeah.
this came to my mind because I started reading. I don't know if you guys remember that book club challenge we had on the show a while back, but we ended up forming that book club, and it was Christian's pick to find our first book. And the book he selected for the book club was called Tortured for Christ. So I finally got on Amazon and ordered it, and it came. And I've been trying to find more godly activities for Christina and I to do together, besides just reading the Bible. So I thought, if I have to do this book club, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to read the book with her, I'll read it to her, and I'll also have my books, reports done for the weekly book report. It is such a sad, beautiful book. It's about a Christian in Romania who's part of the underground church, and he expresses the things that happened to him and people that he witnessed happen to while he was in the communist prisons. And it is I'm only on chapter 2, and I have already read stuff that has made me completely sick to my stomach.
Wow. What is the name of it?
It's called Tortured for Christ.
Oh.
There's a part that he describes seeing in there where they had been torturing a priest for months and months. And they finally tortured the priest into getting him to do sacraments on feces and urine.
Wait, that sounds like somebody in scripture. I can't remember. Antiochus?
Yeah, that's here and stuff like that.
Well, the Moabite religion had a strong connection with sexual acts and worship, but one of their acts is they would go up to their altar and defecate on or by the altar before taking part in sexual acts up by the altar. So feces goes very far back in pagan religions.
Yeah.
But just heart-ripping stuff, guys. And that's Romania years ago. But to think that this is still happening today in countries like Iran and Pakistan, Rosy, you have some connections with several people in Pakistan, and they're currently being persecuted there too, right?
Yeah. I wish Rakesh was here. I did send him a message, but they are 9 hours ahead of us. So I can't do math that quickly. It's 9:30, so he's probably sleeping. But I was just reading. I found a couple of sites. The first one, they actually wanted money in order to get any of the information, like that was legitimate statistics. I know I read an article months ago, maybe last year, and it was during the floods, that the government is on the Muslim side. Because Christianity is offensive to Allah. They call it blasphemy, and so they're permitted to just kill people and charge them these ridiculous fines, throw the men in prison, the providers of the families, and it just, it is severe oppression that they have to face for their faith. But I do have one. I guess there's like little pockets of safety, but it's, the majority, like the big cities, it's hard to be Christian there. They'll just, if they
Um,
discover that you're a Christian, they'll, permitted to slaughter you.
I know that in Muslim countries, there is no such thing as separation of church and state. They are linked. The government and the Islam are in a Muslim country. They're linked. They're together. The government enforces Sharia law. There's no such thing as separation of church and state in that kind of country.
Hi, Stump.
I
Hello,
stopped.
brothers. Hello, brothers and sisters. How's everybody?
Good.
I come at a bad time.
No, I'm multitasking. Trying to.
I am sharing a video in the private chat, but I'm going to share it on the chat for everybody also. How you doing today, Stump?
I feel good. Real good.
Good, man. This was not a planned episode, and I just kind of threw it together last minute. But you remember we started that book club not long ago,
Right.
and the first book was called Tortured for Christ. So, of course, you can guess it's about persecution back in, like, the 80s in Romania. And after we got done reading Chapter 2, Christina and I went on one of our favorite pastors' sites, and I posted it for everybody so you guys can take a look at him. I picked a random episode, and it was also on persecution. And it really, really tugged at my heartstrings. And that's why I wanted to throw this together for everybody tonight, so that we can bring some awareness to the modern day persecuted church.
Amen. I think, I'm not sure, but Lupin, I think he said they took his channel down. I think he sent me a text. I couldn't really understand it. I have a chance to get back to him, but
What?
we just talked about it yesterday, how they censor things on certain items and certain situations you can't talk about. And I think I don't want to be for sure, but I looked for his channel. I didn't find it. So
Why would they take his channel down? They didn't tell
I don't
him?
know. I guess something he posted talked about something. Like I said, I don't want to say something falsely, but I believe that's the text he sent me. It was hard to understand what he said. But I looked for his channel today and I didn't find it. I might have just missed it. I don't know.
And see, that's scary, man, because this isn't even persecution that we're feeling. This is annoyances at best.
Well, yeah. We know if this is the end times like we think it is, like most of us think it is, then this stuff's going to happen. It must be.
Yeah.
It's gonna come here. It's just we see it distant, different countries. It's moving closer and closer. Canada, you see bits and pieces where street preachers are arrested by cops for just preaching just preaching the word, and they're arrested. So it's coming slowly. It's got to be that way.
Just saying out loud in public that there are only two genders and that cannot change can get you arrested for hate speach.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the basic word of God. He made
Not here,
them
but in
male
Canada, I
and
guess.
female.
You see, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, they can circumvent that simply by labeling something hate speech.
Mhm.
They can completely circumvent the First Amendment by doing that. They can just say, "Oh, that's hate speech," and all of a sudden you can't say that anymore.
Yeah, they're redefining words.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Is Christian coming back?
I'm not sure if Christian will have a chance to come back.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was sharing some statistics with them, Stump,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the scary statistics is that if we don't lose a single Christian to atheism or another religion by 2045, according to the Pew Research, we will still become the minority religion in the United States.
Oh
Christianity.
yeah, I can believe that easily. Yeah, you already see it in the society. You see how everything's against Christianity and how they pass laws and what they do in the school system. There's no Christ isn't on their mind anywhere around. I mean, not a bit. I don't see it anywhere. Once in a while, like I said, if I wear a Jesus Saves T-shirt out in the public, I'll get dirty looks, and once in a while I have someone say, "Hey, Jesus saves," say something good. But people don't believe in God, first of all, or I don't know what they. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, or they just know and they don't care. But
You know what?
it's a sign of the times. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have a T-shirt. Oh, hold on, I'll get it. Hold on.
Rosie, what's that noise in your background? It's,
Back again.
yeah.
It might be. Does it sound like the washer?
I don't know what it sounds like. Sounds kind of like a vibration.
That might be the washer.
Oh, it's really bad. So could you just mute when you're not talking? Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. Let me turn my cam on. The three Heath brothers have a song called "We Choose Life" on their second album, "Who We Are," and the song
Just
is
listen to it. It's good. Go ahead. Sorry.
"Yeah, We Choose Life." It's written. It was inspired by. Rhonda Harris. I'll have to call her back.
Hi, Chris.
Hey,
Oh, hey, Chris. How are you? It was
alright.
inspired by when the twins were in their mother's womb. One of them wasn't developing properly, wasn't getting enough nutrition, and so.
Could you mute that phone or something, Ryan?
Sorry. That's my sister. I'll have to call her back. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. The doctor asked their mother if she wanted to terminate the one that wasn't developing right, and she said no. I'm going to trust God that they're both going to be born healthy, and she did. And of course, both of them were born healthy, and you can see them up on stage. They're all both twins are healthy, but they have a shirt here that says "We Choose Life," three Heath brothers on it, and thanks for choosing life. And it says Christian Heath. That's the twin that almost wasn't born. And I have to admit, there'll be times when I think about wearing it, and I'm just like, well, what if a leftist sees it and starts harassing me or something? And because even the Heaths themselves say that they sometimes.
Everybody, welcome Grayson back. How have you been,
Hey,
Grayson?
Grayson, how are you? But I'm gonna take a little break and call my sister back.
Okay, sounds good, Ryan. And also, Chris is also with us. How are you, Chris?
I'm alright. How are you?
Hi, Chris.
I woke up today. I'm blessed. Grayson, how have you been, sir?
Am I coming through yet? I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
There we go. I fixed it.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I plugged in my mic. It's very.
You know what? I have been told by a lot of professionals that the best thing to make your equipment work is to make sure it's got batteries or it's plugged in.
Well, we got a full house tonight. Christian Pike is back.
Hey.
It's so crazy you would join us on the Persecuted Church night, Grayson.
You want me to persecute you? I mean, I can try.
No, please don't. I'll wait till it comes naturally. I just thought it was funny because we've actually been wanting you to stop by for the longest time.
Yeah, if you don't get your birth rates up, you'll be persecuted by Islam pretty soon. Got to get them birth rates up, guys.
Even then, Christianity's at a decline that's not going to be reversed. Well, it's on a decline in the West.
I would say you're probably right. It's on a decline. All religions are on a decline internationally. Islam's losing. People are going to think like me soon enough. Well, not even like me, because I believe in something else. So it'll be just a regular old boring atheist.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I don't believe in the Christian God, so yes.
Do you believe in a God?
Yes.
Okay, who's that?
You wouldn't be familiar with her?
The Earth God? Mother?
You literally couldn't be familiar with her. I mean, you could continue to guess, but you would.
Gaia?
Well,
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of.
Nope. I spent 20 years looking for your God, and then at the bottom of everything, ready to check out, I found my own.
And what's so sad about that, guys, is our friend Grayson here is actually a former, sorry, let me correct that. he was the pastor of a church. What was it, Grayson, for 10 years? Like, you actually went through seminary.
I went to seminary, but I only pastored a church for like 5 years. I did,
5 years.
I spoke at lots of churches, but as far as leading one, only about 5 years.
Oh, hey, Grayson, I realize who you are now, buddy. It's good to see you again.
Okay, good to be back.
Yeah, I remember now. How's my sound, Steve?
Your sound is perfect. It's not too loud, and it's not too low
doing
either.
Whatever. It was the washer. Anyway. Can I ask you a question, Grayson?
Absolutely.
Not to I guess we're like a little side topic, which is where this would be a good time to do sidebars. That's what you're talking about before. What were you looking for the Christian God to? Were you looking for some supernatural experience, or what was it that just you made?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Anything that would have allowed me to differentiate imagination from reality. And as far as my 20 years of looking, I never saw any difference between the imaginary Christian God and a real Christian God. Nothing ever came out to me that said there's any truth to what I am saying. So anything, if God would have presented himself to me in any possible way where I would have realized he was real, I would still be preaching and teaching the gospel. But he did not feel it was necessary to do so. And go ahead.
What do you mean by if he would have? So you were looking for a supernatural experience then? No,
I followed the Ray Comfort method. I just lived a life. I believed as best as I could. But I just can't force God to have any sort of revelatory or changing nature in your life, right? I mean, who are we?
I'm familiar with Ray. Have you heard of Coco?
Yes.
Have you listened to him?
Probably when I was a Christian years ago. I mean, the name is familiar, but I'd have to Google him to be giving you more information. He's not as popular as Banana Man.
No, they just recently put out a well, I have the paper somewhere. It's what is it? Have you heard of that?
Nope, I'd have to Google. Let me Google it. Let me see why I don't.
Oh, no, that's the one for the rainbow. The what is it is an abortion thing. Is it human? If it's human, then no excuses is good enough, and if it's not human, then we don't need any excuses to defend abortion. Basically, I don't know if you can see that.
Okay, Ray Coco, does he preach for Living Waters? Is that the guy we're talking about?
No, he has his own ministry called the Stand to Reason.com.
Okay, Stand.
He used to be an atheist. But he
listen to everything that man said.
Huh?
So do you know who Rob Piper is? I used to love that guy. I could be saying his name wrong. No. He was a preacher in Minnesota. He did a lot.
John Piper?
John Piper, yeah.
John Piper is on fire for the love of God. Yeah, Greg Coco takes a different approach. He takes more of a logical, thought through, reasoning approach. He says that the Christian God is the best explanation for the story of reality. But and he just came out, it's not that old, with a whole presentation and study on it. But you can find all those resources if you're still looking to be talked into it. I mean, I don't know of any other reason why you would be on a Christian platform unless there was some part of you that had any kind of hope.
No, I talk to Christians the same reason I talk to flat earthers. I just like talking to people with different opinions than me. I'm not looking to be convinced. Not any longer.
Can I ask you a question, Grayson?
Well, I'm not close to being convinced, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I have another question too. Go ahead, Steve.
Fire away.
The God that you serve, do you believe that God is responsible for the coming of all things into being?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. She sustains and maintains reality. Correct.
So is this Mother Nature?
No, it literally, it is for all intents and purposes.
It's not the Earth Mother Goddess.
It could be a personal deity. It is. I have about 100 or 200 people who follow me and listen to my teachings, but other than those people, you could not have heard of it.
So it's so it's kind of your own revelation of a God.
Sure. I mean, she's
So-
revealed herself to other people, but to me, yes.
Is there a name?
Yes, but you have to, I'd have to be wanting to convert you to talk to you about that. And I'm not here to convert anybody. It's not part of my religion. We don't convert. There's no need.
Interesting.
If you don't
So what
convert,
happens-
though, how does your congregation ever blossom?
Sometimes I speak about what I believe, and people like what they hear, and they seek out more. And I talk to them, but I don't actively convert anyone, and often I don't talk about it too awful much. Sometimes I'm in the mood and I do, but I don't go out of my way. I just don't. My God doesn't punish people, so there's nothing for you to be redeemed of. There's only reward, no punishment.
So how do you
Interesting.
explain? How does your God explain why there's evil in the world?
Well, how do I explain it?
Well,
I
your
think that
God.
every being that currently exists chose to do so, and thus we chose the potential of moral and natural evil. And anyone who suffers does so willingly, or at least at some point in their existence made a choice to willingly suffer.
What about people who have cancer? That's not really something they chose.
Maybe not in this life, but before they came to this reality, they made a decision where the potential of cancer was an option that they could suffer. So they are informed of the possible outcomes of coming here.
So it's sort of like Hinduism.
I'm not too familiar with Hinduism, but I don't.
I believe it's a caste system that you like progress.
I think well, let me just give a brief purpose of life. What is, because that's like, and that's religion's goal. What's the purpose of life? I would say the purpose of life is to be worthy of existing, and the reward of meeting that goal is being able to accept.
Interesting.
Say that again.
That could almost be that could be a philosophy.
I mean, it's
It
not
sounds
too far off from
works-based,
Gnostic
though.
thought, but it's I unquestionably believe that we live in a simulation, that this is not base reality, and that we are suffering and learning these moral oughts for a reason. And that was the problem that I had, not fundamentally, but as I left the Christian faith, is that it seems like suffering from a Christian point of view is all for the glory of God. It's, as someone who's had a lot of suffering in his life, that's a pretty raw deal.
Can I ask you another question, Grayson?
Certainly.
Do you believe that there is a actual, legitimate historical figure from history named Yeshua Messiah?
I don't know. Jesus, I believe, yes. I believe Jesus was a historical figure.
You believe Jesus was a historical person and that he
Correct.
was crucified?
Yes, I believe it is likely that he was crucified by the Romans. Correct.
Okay.
Do you believe that he rose from the dead?
No.
Okay, interesting. Could I ask you why you don't believe so?
Because I don't really believe in supernatural things, and I've never seen a supernatural thing, and until I do, I would be perfectly happy with natural. I mean, the natural explanations just make a lot more sense.
Is there anything from any, even pagan history, that would meet the criteria of supernatural that you do find to be possibly valid?
I have never seen evidence for anything supernatural that is convincing to me in any whatsoever.
Huh. Okay.
So do you
I have a
believe
question.
in justice? Sorry, Chris.
That's okay.
Well, yes, I believe that morally questionable
You broke up. Grayson.
action should be punished. Yes. I'm sorry. I might have left there for a second. What did you hear my answer?
Yeah,
you
you
were
faded out for
completely
just a
out.
moment.
So
I
if
said
somebody, go ahead.
moral wrongs should be punished. Yes.
All right, Chris.
Okay.
How much do you believe in science? Like, how is that a part of your religion at all? And even if it's not, still the same question, like, how deep do you believe into like modern science? Like, for example, when they say that they can look back in time by looking further into space, do you believe that they're actually looking back in time? Billions of years?
Well, yes, I mean the light is old. Unless this, we talked about this last time. I certainly think that young Earth creationism is demonstrably wrong. We talked about this another time I was here. But yes, the universe certainly appears to be old, and if it's not old, we're somehow being deceived.
How do you think it came into being?
I believe my God created it.
I want to
Grayson.
go.
Wait,
Go
wait
ahead.
a minute. Wait.
Stump.
Grayson,
Let Stump go.
Grayson, does your belief or your God or do you have you say you have moral standards, and if so, who sets them standards? Is it your God, or is it you, or who sets it?
Who sets moral standards? I believe in natural law, so I believe it is an undiscovered law of nature, and that part of existing is to discover what is the best possible, or what moral absolute or moral perfection looks like, and tailor our experiences accordingly.
So it's individual. It sounds like it's individual decision, right? What you find right or wrong.
No, sir. I
Okay,
believe
so-
it is an undiscovered natural law, meaning just like gravity, it is something that is constant and absolute, and that we need to discover it, figure out how it works and what makes it perfect, and we can then enact our lives to comport to that natural law.
So how do we discover it as individuals? Like, how would I discover it? Like, for instance, let's say I believe that it's okay to rape somebody, a woman, and that's not the natural law. How do I discover that? How do I come to that? How do I figure that out?
Well, I would like to believe that you don't believe that, and people that think that way, society has a way of dealing with them. So society as a whole works towards it, but as we become more technologically and comfortable, that's why I say that as people become less hungry, they need less God. And that's a sad part for Christianity and lots of faiths that recruit, is that people, as they're not suffering, they don't need anything, especially spiritually. And
What
so I
about
think
those
that
ones who?
go ahead.
What about those people who say do like slaughter and serial killers and stuff that get away with it? And they die. You don't think that there should be justice for them in the afterlife?
I think that something might happen to them, but look, I don't think that infinite punishment for finite crime is justice.
Well, that's the whole idea, is that it's not a finite crime. It's, even David says, "You and you alone have I sinned against." So you might, consider it a finite thing, but God doesn't see it as finite because the sin is against a holy and just God. But He's also love, so He also offers a pardon.
You don't see a contradiction in that. Holy and just, but love. Punishing forever for even the most horrible temporary things. Punishment forever for the most horrible
see,
temporary
that's
things.
the
That
escape,
doesn't
though.
feel like love to me.
Well, that's not how it works
Okay.
either, though.
So you don't believe in eternal perdition?
What I believe is that God has automatically preset a default into every sin. Every sin has a consequence. Like the sin of premarital sex without protection is you're going to have children out of wedlock. If you guys don't get married, that's going to cost you for the rest of your life. There is an automatic punishment built into the sin, but God didn't make you sin. Indeed, he didn't want us to sin. So He didn't put that punishment on us. Our own begotten sin put the punishment on us. He was gracious enough to lift the death penalty, though, and I personally find that pretty impressive.
You kind of also set the death penalty, though, right?
And we accepted it.
I didn't accept it.
We all would have. You, me, Grayson. It
Well,
was
by
a
the
pretty
case-
good deal from a God talking to us.
Okay, I mean, I give you this. If God exists, there is nothing. There's nothing you can do about it. If a being is literally all powerful, what I think or my opinions matter not.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. It is fascinating conversation, though.
Do you believe in like oneness, everything being connected?
No.
Is it possible for this religion to sustain itself with a level of stability after you're dead and gone?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have some kind of manifesto or Bible? And I don't mean these sarcastically, so I hope you don't feel like I'm being snarky.
But it's not my give. I would not.
Okay. But so you're gonna put that is a lot of faith in word of mouth tradition being handed down.
I don't know if you heard what I said. I blinked out. I said if in 100 years it's no one knows about it, I don't care.
Oh, okay.
I mean, at some point I might write it down and I might actively seek out people because I think it's beneficial for them. But I also think that my message, for the most part, isn't much more than don't be an a-hole. It's like act how you would like other people to act around you, and live as though you're being watched. So simply, it's not too far off from your Christian message, except you also live according to what God would have you do, because we are being watched constantly, right?
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Well, you mentioned that you left the faith because you were never able to observe God's reality. And I respect you for being honest. Have you observed proof of the reality of your current God?
To my
that
standard,
you would
yeah.
believe in it?
I can tell you my conversion story, but it's a little PG-13.
Oh, well,
I mean,
we'll have to take your word for it, sir, because it is definitely a G show.
Okay, yeah.
If Dustin's here, it's PG.
Yeah, I mean, it just involves some adult themes, but nothing like graphic or gross. But I recognized my form, so I didn't want to be inappropriate.
Oh, I mean, if it's just like a history of drug use or stealing or robbing banks or, prostitution, like that's all stuff that can be forgiven.
So let me ask a question, and this may seem silly. How many times have any of you ever had a gun pointed at you and the trigger pulled? More than once, ever?
Never.
3 times. I've had it done 3 times, twice by my own hand.
And you don't believe in God?
I do now, because of the last 2 times. Are you guys familiar with guns? Are you guys gun enthusiasts? Anyone in here besides me?
I'm fairly familiar.
My family came here in 1620, so yes, I very much like guns.
I have a Springfield I still have it, but a Springfield Springfield Armory 1911, and one night I decided I'm just going to end this. I'm tired of life. I have some diagnoses that prevent me from, and this could be why I never found God, to be honest with you, but I have antisocial personality disorder. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but I was diagnosed with it as a child. It essentially means that I cannot feel emotions like normal people. I essentially feel no emotions. I just never have. I can somewhat empathize, but it's mostly just reacting to how people, I sort of mirror people. I have no real feelings like you would. Anyway, I decided I was going to end everything, so I cleaned this 1911. I put in high-quality bullets. See if I could remember. It was Federal Hypersonics, so about $2 a bullet. And I put that 1911 to my head, and I pulled the trigger, and I heard that click. Nothing. So I thought, that's unusual. So it took me a couple hours to build up the courage, and I cleaned the gun again, replaced the ammo, pulled the trigger, and that, my friend, is when I met God.
That's only 2.
Well, the first time was a drunk man at a bar. I can tell you about that. But I was when I worked in college.
3 different times you had a gun pointed at you, and someone pulled the trigger. That's correct.
That is correct. And not
3 times, Grayson.
3 times.
Like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
I mean,
and you don't believe that God's looking out for you, sir?
I do believe she is. Yes.
Grayson, do you serve 3 gods?
No, I serve a single God.
Does your God ever manifest herself in 3 persons?
Not in 3. She has a multiplicity. She has many in one.
Wouldn't you agree that
a
God sparing your life 3 times is pretty significant?
Oh, well, 3 times is just with guns, my friend. 14 times I should have died in life.
14 times.
14 times. I was born dead, like medically dead. Which is what led to my diagnosis. I mean, cut off oxygen in my brain for a while, but yeah, 14 times in life. Not since my conversion, but prior.
Well, Grayson, you said on the second trigger pull, you're trying to take your own life. You met God, you said. Your God.
Yes.
Right? This, well, explain, please.
But I won't go into too much detail. But I had what Paul would describe as an out-of-body experience. I met her in person. She brought me in front of her, and we spoke for quite a long while. And I learned many things, a lot of which not particularly relevant right now. But like I said, I told you what I thought the meaning of life was. If you're in front of God, wouldn't you have that question? I mean, even as a Christian, there has to be things you would ask God. He revealed himself to you.
Well,
Can I
when
share a little bit of something? Go ahead. I'll wait.
just when you met her after the second attempt at your life, it outwardly convinced you not to continue trying to take your life, right? Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And was there any type of? I mean, I've known people who try to take their life or have. So it's usually some kind of narcotics involved or drinking. Was there anything like that that might have lended itself to meeting this guy? Or no?
I was sober, 100%.
Oh wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, thanks.
But
Okay. I just looked up 14 in the Hebrew because
I mean, I cannot, like I said, but to me, it's 100% real. So I guess, and like I said, I'm not trying to convince you guys of it. So if you think I hallucinate it, then I hallucinate it. It doesn't. But to me, it's real, and it changed my life.
I'm not suggesting that you hallucinated. I find it very realistic that you spoke to a spirit.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I believe that.
But it couldn't be a good spirit, though. It claimed to be God or the Creator, right?
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
We talked about this last time. I told you, God, I believe in, but your only option is that I have to be being deceived by a demon. I mean, from your perspective, I would assume.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise we wouldn't be Christians, right?
Right. I mean, if you're holding true to what you believe, what else could it be? I mean, I guess it could
Right.
technically be another God. I mean, the Bible doesn't say that. I don't know. It sort of alludes to, but they're certainly not in the same category as your God.
Can I ask you something else, Grayson?
Sure.
How did you come across this God? Or how did it come across you?
I had no fathoming of her until I pulled that trigger. Nothing she taught me, none of the things I learned while with her, were things that I had ever conceived of, thought of, interacted with before. They are ideas that were somewhat foreign to, I mean, not in a foreign, like completely strange way, but just things that, if you'd asked me like prior to my conversion in Christianity and prior to me espousing Christianity and here, I would have said that consequences should dictate one's course of actions, that it doesn't matter what's right. It's only wrong if you get caught. But I don't believe that anymore. But when I had nothing morally grounding me, I saw no other reason to life. I mean, why do anything? And I know you guys tell us the atheists all the time, right? I hear it in the arguments, the debates. It's like, how do you ground your morality? I can just do whatever I want.
Right. That's true.
I don't think it's true, but it was. I understand the argument.
Can I read this? It's just a paragraph here about the Hebrew, and I find it significant considering that you tried to shoot yourself 3 different times.
Well, only twice. Someone else tried the first time.
What now?
Someone else tried the first time I got shot. I was
Okay, so it was
I was
3
working
times.
out.
Okay.
I was working as a bouncer at a bar.
Okay, so you have the 3. He already pointed out the significance of 3, but the Hebrew meaning of the number 14 is related to the Hebrew characters that represent 14 and the Yod 10 and the Dalet 4. 14 thus represented as a Yod Dalet. In addition to being a number, it is also the Hebrew word for hand, Yod. 14 is also the number of joints in the human hand. The number 14 in Hebrew is also indicated by the term Yod Dalet, and it's another symbol of deliverance and release. The letters signify the hand opening and a door and subsequent release or freedom from some kind of prison. In addition, it says, because some Christians believe that Christ was crucified on the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. So you don't think that God is like trying to extend your days so that you would come to him? I
No.
would consider this.
I mean, I appreciate I understand I honestly believe that you guys probably believe that I am in mortal danger, at least my soul. And so I understand your need to impress upon me, but I'm just here for a conversation. But I'm happy to listen to it. Thank you.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Totally understandable if you don't look into it because it's a lot. But I just figured I'd mention it in case it sounded interesting to you. But there's this man, you may have heard of him, Jordan Peterson, and he did this biblical lecture series, Genesis, which at the time he was atheist. And when he does the lecture series, he's not doing it from a religious Christian standpoint. He's going through the psychological significance and the different archetypes that and archetypal structures that exist within all of the different stories of the Bible. And anyways, it gave a really, really interesting perspective of the Bible for me, who at the time was an unbeliever that I had never had previously before, despite having read the Bible and also having been I used to be Christian when I was much younger as well. But it gave me a different perspective on it.
Of how it's rooted in history.
And so much. And I mean, I won't go into the whole spiel because I can go on forever about it. But
yeah, he's amazing.
He has like 15 episodes, and they're each 2.5 hours long. The last 20-30 minutes are people asking questions. But I'm on episode 7, so I'm almost 14 hours into it's somewhere around 34 to 36 hour lecture course. It's really, really fascinating. I've really
on Daily Wire?
Yes, but it's also for free on YouTube.
Okay, because I think I started that series. If you're talking
he's
about
also
the
got
lecture
Exodus.
course.
He's got
I've watched
Exodus.
the whole
Yeah, I
thing.
think I've watched like the first couple. It comes up on my feed every once in a while.
Yeah.
Now, let me get this.
I
I never
watched Exodus yet.
So don't let me guys say shake your faith. I don't want that. That's why I don't convert people.
No, it's not going to happen.
Most people, as long as you're living a moral life, I don't care what you believe. So and I think that most Christians strive to live a moral life, and that's good on them. And most of the things they do would purport with what I also would consider moral.
Now, when you were saying something about suffering in the very beginning when you first started talking, and I don't know, I sensed that maybe, and I could be wrong, I sense that maybe you have an issue with or maybe disagree with the idea of redemptive suffering that's present in the Christian religion.
Currently, yes, I do. Absolutely, yeah. I don't.
I used to have
I don't find it compelling.
Problem with it. I read this book called Not in His Image by John Lamlash. And man, when I read that, it hit me right down into my core with a lot of confusing and painful feelings that I had that really came out and were explained in that book that really helped me voice this issue that I had with redemptive suffering. And well, it's been a long time since I've read it. I read it a few times, and I'm only newly Christian within just like the last 6 months. But it took me quite a few years to finally understand redemptive suffering. And I can't say that I understand it in a way well enough to sit here and try to preach it to you right now. But I just find it interesting when I meet other people, because a lot of people can't voice that. A lot of people have that issue with the idea of redemptive suffering, but they don't know really how to voice it. And I think that for most people to understand the whole idea of redemptive suffering, the whole, why would you kill my child with cancer? Or why would this loved one of mine be murdered? Or all these things. And why should something good come out of something bad? And I think that we all have to go on a personal journey to really find the answers to those things.
Yeah. I'm back, everybody. I had to spend some time on the phone with my sister there.
Okay. Well, I wanna try to segue back over to our topic from the beginning, which was the persecution of the church in today's world. This is 900,000 Christians were martyred over the last decade, according to Christian research. Now, this was from the Center for a Study of Global Christianity. I guess it's an independent something. Center for the Study of Global Christianity, CSGC, says 900,000 Christians have been martyred in the last decade, equating to 90,000 a year and one every 6 minutes. The interesting thing, though, guys, is this isn't happening in the Western world. Where have 900,000 Americans or Canadians or Britons or Scots or Germans been killed? This is in countries that are polar opposite of the message of Christ Jesus.
Like China.
These are overwhelmingly Muslim countries, but yes, China, North Korea. North Korea is not talked about.
Yeah.
I knew it was Muslim reading the headline. Like I didn't read the article.
It's very dangerous to be a Christian in North Korea.
Yes.
It's dangerous to have any free thought in North Korea.
Really at all. Yeon Mi is a Korean defector, Yeon Mi, and she's got a fascinating story to tell. Side note.
I'm surprised she's still alive, to be honest with you.
I didn't realize I wasn't muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Harvest guy?
What is this? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I have to go. Talk to you guys some other day.
All right, brother.
All right,
Have a good one, Ghost.
Be good.
Bye.
All right.
I'm going to get this up too, Rosy. This is a good one. Christians in Pakistan are struggling to survive barbaric persecution. Global Christian Relief. Pakistani Christians and other religion minorities face abductions, indentured servitude, which is slavery, and state-sanctioned execution. State-sanctioned execution. 2023.
Exactly.
But for some reason, guys, in countries like Iran, under this type of persecution that's going on in countries like Pakistan, the number of Christianities are skyrocketing.
That's praise the Lord on that.
Yeah.
While here in the United States, we have every advantage and blessing, and we're losing numbers in every single denomination across the board.
Yep, they're falling out.
Doesn't
the Bible talk about a great apostasy?
I think that COVID accelerated that trend.
Oh, I totally
really
agree. I never thought that I'd see a time when we would not, even though I wasn't Christian at the time, I never really thought that we would see a time where you wouldn't be allowed to go to church. And at first I was 100% okay with it. And I judged Christians for going to church. But as soon as they opened up the strip clubs, but wouldn't let churches open, that's where I was like, wow, something's going on here.
Yeah, you could go to the liquor store, but you couldn't go to church. And my church never closed. I mean, of course, at the height of COVID, I wasn't going there yet, but I know that, my pastor used to say that, there's never been a COVID case from our church. And, they took precautions. They put some, what is it? What are these filters? These blue
face masks.
What are those filters that they can put on it to kill germs that the air passes over?
N95.
Infrared, or not the other. What's the opposite? What's the other besides infrared? It's
the HEPA filters, like they're putting in places.
It's I don't know why my mind's not working. Anyway, they would put filters and stuff to try to make sure that the air was clean and all that. So they took those precautions. But I think a lot of people got out of the habit of going, and then when the danger was over, they just kept not going. Oh, I watch online, but you all know that watching a service online is not the same as being in a service.
No, not the same.
It's really not. And before I started going to my church, I used to watch First Baptist Church of Leesburg online, which kind of gave me a little emotional connection with my little town I lived in as a child. But It's not the same as going to a service.
I feel like there was a huge uptick in anti-Christian propaganda throughout the worst parts of COVID because Christians were blamed for being the anti-maskers and the anti-vaxxers and the people going out in public, even though there were plenty of Christians I knew that weren't like that. But and all walks of people I knew that weren't getting vaccinated and weren't using masks. But for some reason, it was blamed as a Christian Republican right wing thing.
And Trumpers, the Trumpers,
and a Trumper. It was just so weird. If you believed if you did this, you were just all these, the whole double speak. And
I will say that the ones that kept wearing their masks even after you really didn't need one, and they after it was found out they really didn't do much good. They did it they did it to virtue signal.
Yeah.
Look at me, I'm wearing it, and it's normally people on the left that would be like that.
Oh yeah. Well, what really got me, because I was a dedicated masker for the first year. I didn't bring my kids to the grocery store for a year. I went very few places. I was completely isolated for a vast majority of the time. But right about the time that we started going to restaurants again, and people would have to wear their mask to walk into the restaurant and then sit down and take it off.
Take the mask off to eat.
Yeah, that was where I was like, no, this is what is happening right now. And that's kind of what really started waking me up to.
Right. It was some kind of control and not about the science, as they always proclaim the science, the science.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry, I was just saying that COVID may actually be sort of like a test run for the Antichrist, for when they have total control over everybody. To me, it almost looks like a test run.
Well, there's more coming. We know there's more coming. It ain't over. Yeah. They're doing all this stuff with the passports, the worldwide COVID passports, and the.
Well, did y'all hear about event 208?
201, I think it is, or 205.
Or 201,
something like that. Yeah, 201 meant to be.
Yeah, in November. No, sorry, it was October, I believe. It was either October or November. It was literally just a few months before the first verified case of COVID-19. They did this simulation in New York that was a bunch of governments that came together and ran various simulations for a coronavirus that was exactly the kind of coronavirus that developed here. And then they did another mock pandemic, and I forget what they called it, but it was like Event 201, and it was for monkeypox. And then there was, the monkeypox epidemic, which just suddenly disappeared. As it came out that it was mostly gay people that it was happening, and then it just kind of disappeared from the media. That was crazy.
Yeah, it shows that there was some kind of agenda, and much of the world fell for it. And like I've said before, I think that shows that he's already been conquered already, and I think the white horse of Revelation 6 has already rolled, and we're just going into the part where they pillage and rape and confine you, and they bring in. What happens when someone conquers a country or a city, right? What do? They take the people out, and they bring their own people in, right? We see that happening here. They're bringing them in by the busloads all over the cities. We've been conquered already, and we
but we're not being slaughtered and persecuted like they are in other countries.
Well,
thank God,
that's
but knock on wood. But in many ways, how many people took the vaccine that didn't want to and they died? And then, or they got seriously harmed. And then after being seriously harmed, or after having their child or their loved one die, the vaccine community turns on you, and you can't get recognition for it, and you weren't allowed to post about it on social media anywhere. It come out that Twitter, out of the Twitter files when Elon Musk took over, that Twitter
I'm not
had
against the vaccine, though.
I'm
against making it mandatory. Well, I am kind of against it in general, but
making it mandatory was my protest. Right?
Yeah,
I refuse to take it, but that's a personal medical decision that someone should have with their doctor.
Yeah, when it comes to abortion, they're pro-choice, but all of a sudden, when it comes to the vaccine, they're not.
They call you murder. I was deep in.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was deep in the anti-vax movement before COVID. So most people don't realize exactly what happened when COVID started, because we were organized. We had huge communities. I mean, there were countless organizations, and many of these organizations had chapters all over the world, and people were organizing and collecting proof and even winning countless court cases. And then when COVID happened, it was like overnight they deleted all of our Facebook groups, they deleted all of our private chats, they deleted all of our Facebook pages. We got banned off of YouTube, banned off of Instagram, banned off of Tumblr, banned off of Reddit. And then what
Who
few
were you guys?
pages, the anti-vaxxers
Oh yeah, got you.
in general, the whole community, you know, and not just anti-vaxxers, but people who did on delayed schedule, people who were maybe pro-vax, but were
Wasn't COVID before your conversion?
COVID was before my conversion, yes.
And you were still anti-vax?
And I was still, that's the thing about me becoming Christian is I didn't realize it until actually maybe a few months into being Christian, that there was so much about me that was so Christian that I never really even realized. Just a lot of beliefs that I have and a lot of morals that I have that align very well with the Bible, but I couldn't see it because I was blinded by my hate and by my misunderstanding and lack of context to a lot of the worser Bible verses that I had read.
Yeah,
Hermeneutics is
you know,
big.
I can kind of identify with that a little bit. I mean, even while I was living in sin, you know, I still tried to have a Christian veneer, and I still, you know, I still tried to, like I said, live in both worlds. And I know I think he was definitely watching over me throughout all that time that I was wandering through the wilderness. And he knew that one day I would return. He was just waiting for the right time for it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised to hear that too, because usually the anti-V is associated with the right, what people call the right or conservatives. To hear that woke not woke is part of that is surprising.
Here's how the left became a part of the anti-vax movement. And I have a very unique perspective on this because you're right, anti-vax and a lot of these things tend to be right-wing. But so there's this movement, you know, the whole like gentle parenting movement, and it kind of became a whole thing about parenting. No spanking, gentle parenting, no punishing, no timeouts, and then that fell into eating super healthy, doing holistic medicine, extended breastfeeding, anti-vaxxers or delayed vaccine and things of that nature. And so those were mostly leftist people.
Yeah, those are the kind I can get
Although
along
there
with.
was a lot of
Those are the kind of leftists I can get along with. They're reasonable.
Yeah, see, they were the more reasonable centered leftists. But what happened is over time, for most things, not all, but for most things, like especially identity politics related things, it became so cultish that the reasonable leftists became extremists like myself. I became very extreme leftist, and I went from like a center leaning left that was pretty warm to the right to far left. And a lot of that was re-education.
Yeah,
online through social media.
I wouldn't be surprised if YouTube has a problem with this video today, since we said the V word so much. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
They still do that stuff. They're still messing with that medical information lies. So
I'm not anti-vax. I'm anti-force.
I don't like forcing people to do stuff. What would it take to convince you that vaccines were safe? It seems like you're fairly certain they're not. I don't want to talk COVID because I recognize how quickly it was put out. I took the COVID vaccine. I didn't have a problem with it. But I also didn't talk to people object to it. But like the polio.
To give a little background on myself. Oh, we can get into polio. The biggest infection that we ever had in polio happened in about the 1950s, and it came from a batch of infected vaccines that created polio.
Yeah, I've heard the propaganda. Can I ask you, what would it take for you to be convinced? Because I mean, I just want to know. That's what I ask people who should have are anti-science.
I actually used to be super pro-vaccine.
Okay.
I got almost into the nursing field. I had my CNA, so I had some medical experience. And then I almost got a 2-year degree in biotechnology. I ended up having a bunch of major health issues, so I wasn't able to finish. But after then, I continued my studies on my own personally and continued to study biotechnology genetics just for fun. Actually, I started studying it in high school out of just pure interest because I was a geek like that. So I don't think my mind could ever be changed because I used to be the most pro-vax, pro-science person that I ever knew.
Okay, so then what you're saying, and you're not gonna like what I have to say about this, but you have a religious belief and not a factual belief. If your mind is unwilling to be changed, your
These
belief is not
beliefs
based in fact.
happened before my Christianity.
I'm just saying, any
Long.
belief that is unwilling to be changed is a religious belief.
Could I
Do you
give
always
you my
believe that rape
answer?
is wrong? Is rape always wrong?
Yes.
Okay. Is murder without self-defense, like just to, for example, murder a 5-year-old for no reason, is that always wrong?
I would say generally murder is wrong. I think you could make up a scenario where I would say murder might be acceptable. Maybe if maybe if there's a guy who's going to blow up a building full of toddlers if I don't murder this grandma. I mean, in that stupid scenario, murder might be okay. But in general, murder is just wrong, yes.
There is a difference between murder and
So I think that there's...
self-defense.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. What were you saying, Rosy?
I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys heard me or not. I said, scripturally speaking, there is a difference between murder and self-defense, scripturally.
Yes, there is. Mm-hmm.
So let me give my ridiculous scenario and tell me how scripturally it pans out. Let's say I see a bomb in a building, my phone rings, and the guy's like, I'm going to blow up this building, this building full of toddlers for whatever reason, unless you walk outside and shoot that grandma in the head. Now, what should I do? What is the morally correct thing to do in this scenario?
Someone calls you and says, unless you shoot a grandma in the head, I'm gonna blow up a building full of...
Let's say I go pick my kid up from preschool, right? And I walk in, and there, right in the front lobby, God darn it, there's a bomb. I see the big B word. And then my phone immediately rings, and the guy goes, I know you just saw the B word. Go out and take out grandma out there, or I'm going to detonate it. What should I do?
Well, you don't kill her, that's for sure. You try to get her out the building.
Oh, I see now. I thought you were saying grandma was the person with the bomb. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
You certainly don't take an innocent life. You don't take an innocent life. And you go try to get the kids out the building. That's what you can do. That's the best you can do.
If it costs more lives in the end, in my opinion, although it may cost more lives in the end by not killing that grandma, if you give in to evil in ways like that, it just gets worse over time. Like, you can always find a way to justify, you know what I mean?
Not just that, but
you could kill grandma
take...
and he could still blow it up.
All right, so let's go to
exactly.
I recognize I put an agent in my story. I mean, it's just a trolley problem. You're working at a train station, and the train's headed down a track with one person or with 5 people, but if you divert it, it kills one person. Should you divert it?
Well, you would divert it in that case to the one person, because that's a little bit different than just outright murdering an innocent person who doesn't have to be murdered versus being on a track where no matter what you do, someone has to die.
It's not the same as shooting grandma in the face. I agree.
I agree that you could be certain of the outcome, where in my previous scenario you couldn't. However, you're still the one causing the death of the person who would have lived had it not been for your choice.
I would feel confident saying that the diversion would be the best thing.
It's not a murder.
I agree with you.
Save the most amount of life.
My moral structure also agrees with you that they're saving the most, the harm of the few for the, I don't know, I'm phrasing it weirdly, but you get what I'm saying. We want to protect as many people as possible.
That was the principle on the cross, too.
That goes personally how I view science now, although I do I do still like the scientific method. I think is really sound, and I do still read anything related to science and scientific journals like constantly. I'm just a big reader. But I see it differently now. I realize now that for me, at least personally, I was so into science, so blind. I had so much blind faith into science that it became as a religion for me, to the point where, I was judgmental against, because I used to be super pro-vax. So I used to be very hateful towards anti-vaxxers, and I used to be super pro-circumcision, and I didn't understand people who didn't circumcise their kids. And I didn't like people who questioned doctors. And in my first pregnancy, until my labor, where I won't get into my labor because that was a horrifying abuse. But right up until that point, I was like, give me whatever vaccine, give me whatever test. I'll drink your glucose stuff. I'll do it all because I was,
Interrupt
headstrong.
for a
And
minute.
yeah.
I was on the impression that people on the left were generally anti-circumcision, but I guess,
yes, but I started out as pro circumcision when I was more center before I became more extreme left.
Yeah.
I don't have any sons.
So in the beginning, I was very pro circumcision.
I thought they weren't circumcisions anymore in America. I don't have any sons, so I'm not sure.
I don't think that anybody is 100% left or right, because years ago I had a roommate who, one of those many people that I took in, and he was pretty far to the left, but yet he loved fur coats and stuff. And so there's always the exceptions to. He was totally cool with fur coats or whatever, fur clothing.
Well, here's what I see with the problem for Christians, right? When this COVID thing hit, and with I'm gonna call it the VOOP, so that YouTube don't pick up on it. When they want you to take the VOOP, they said you must take this VOOP, because if you don't, you're endangering old people. You're endangering this guy, that guy. Now, the Christians on the same hand will say, the government should not allow you to have an abortion. So they should tell you, the woman, what to do with her body, but yet they don't want you to tell them to take the VOOP. And they use the same argument, and we cannot be hypocrites. I don't believe in abortion. I don't think women should have abortions. And my choice with my wife would be we would not have an abortion, or my daughter. I don't want her to have an abortion, but I think a woman has a right to her body, to keep her body the way she wants to do it, and the government shouldn't tell her. Now, on the other hand, so I'm completely clear, the government should not fund abortions with my money. If you want an abortion, it should be your own private thing, on your own personal thing. And I think Christians have this problem with this VOOP and abortion. They're basically the same thing. I know people are going to say, no, they're not. They're the same thing. Your body, your autonomy of your body belongs to you. And it shouldn't have the government telling you what to do. Otherwise, if we can tell someone they must have abortion, then they can tell us we must have a VOOP. Well, I feel that's a problem for Christianity.
Can I hop in with another hypothetical here, Captain?
The difference between that and an abortion is that the child is not actually your body.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't view the child as a child, and then they view people who don't get the VOO as murderers and dangers to society, like dirty plague rats that are dangerous just to breathe.
No. It gets stupider than that. They can find an amoeba or a germ on a foreign planet and have the audacity to call it life. But if something far more special than that is growing inside of a woman, it's just an appendage of the woman. But anyways, Grayson, I'm going to let you go ahead and ask your question, because you were very generous to all of us earlier when you came on, and you were in the hot seat for quite a while.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind answering the question. Thank you. So I guess I obviously have a different opinion about you than most of you do on this.
Oh, were you going to say something else, or did you cut off?
I'm also confused.
Can I?
Suppose that you are incorrect. I think you should be forced to. I'm not. You find out maybe when you die, God says, you know what, Stump, you should have got that shot. You caused a bunch of people to die. Hypothetically, do you think that you're culpable for that? Do you think that was the sin at that point?
No, because I know the consequences. I have in my personal life, I have people that have been damaged by that experimental VOOP.
I know no one.
You know someone who's
been
harmed.
I know somebody, and I'm not going to lie about it. It's the truth, and they're very close to me. And if I could get a hold of Fauci, I wouldn't be Christian-like. Okay, because this is what happened in my personal life, and not one, 2, 3. Okay, and in serious trouble, life-threatening situations. Only thing I think that could help them is prayer, and I pray for my close people every single day about this. So there's no way I would say I did something wrong or anything else. They did something wrong. They did this, and they gave us this thing, an experimental vaccine pushed on everybody. That's wrong.
Well, it was
and I hope they bust hell wide open. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not supposed to wish that, But I will not pray for these people like Fauci and Deborah Birx or any of them. I hope they bust hell wide open. That's all I got to say about it.
Can I just state a fact real quick? A real quick CDC fact. In 2013, they made a media publication, and it's pretty easy to find this online. So 2013, CDC made a media publication, came out and said that in the past 20 years, vaccines saved, it was, I think it was 780,000, somewhere under a million, let's say 800,000, 20 years. They say doctors kill hundreds of thousands a year via medical neglect. They're killing more people than vaccines' lives are saving. And I've seen and had a lot of really terrible, horrible things done to me by doctors. But there's something that I experienced a year and some months ago where I witnessed a young woman be murdered horrifically by her medical staff. The same kind of people that we're supposed to trust with these vaccines and this medicine. I've seen them do some really evil things. And I know what those scientists do behind closed doors when they're experimenting on animals and on the people that they make sign NDAs so they can't disclose all the failed human experiments that we don't hear about.
Amen.
Yeah, I know several people that died from the vaccine as well. They were fine until they had it.
Yeah, people. I know. I have a friend whose son got blood clots from it. Had to go to the hospital.
And that's a lifelong problem. It's not going to stop.
My own
things are
son
in
got
the body.
sick, but thankfully, because they had different strands of it, so he didn't get one of the bad ones.
My mom worked at the hospital for over 15 years, and my dad passed away from COVID like about a year and a half ago now.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know
after
that.
he passed away, my mom called all 6 of us children, because my brother had already passed away, or it should be 7, but she called all of us children to tell us that he passed away, and then really, really urged us not to take the Vloop.
Oh, really?
Cap suggested.
Yep.
I didn't know that, Proverbs.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, well, and the worst part is they the one that developed that, right? They did that. They changed that from affecting animals to be able to affect humans in a lab, and they say it escaped. That's what they say. At first, they said it came from a wet market in China.
No.
Now it escaped from the lab somehow by accident.
Well, they were blowing people's lungs out with those ventilators too.
Yeah, I had to say this.
And remember, you used to not be able to mention the lab theory. They censored you on Facebook.
Yeah,
any social media platform anywhere.
Yep. Now they come along and say, well, that's true.
Fact
it was
checkers.
released by accident. Yeah. The fact checker, they ban you from Facebook and everything else.
Yeah,
so there you go. That's the
word
world we live in. All these wicked people are in charge, and they could care less about you or your child or anybody else's child. They only care about themselves. They're wicked people. And they deserve all they got coming. And you say justice? I hope there is a Christian justice, and I hope there is a hell for these people. I swear I do.
Okay, I don't want to get too personal in this because I can hear how this is affecting you guys. Even though I don't personally experience emotions, I can recognize them in other people. So I don't enter into the feelings. I still disagree.
Are you autistic, Grayson?
No, I have antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, okay, got you.
Autistic people can't experience emotion. I simply cannot.
You don't experience emotion?
Well, no, not for most of my life.
Oh wow, I don't believe I've ever met anyone quite like that.
Yeah.
When was the time you did experience emotion?
Well, it's a very interesting story you ask, but shortly after my conversion, at the same time.
Really?
It was the first time I was able to love my child.
Wow, that's very interesting, Grayson. I was not aware of that condition.
Well, Grayson,
Have you heard of Apologetics Roadshow?
Rosy,
YouTuber?
Rosy, can you hear Stump? Because you just cut him off, but...
No, I didn't hear him.
It just glitched out for me, too. Everyone went quiet for a couple of seconds.
Go ahead, Rosy. Go ahead.
I was just curious, Grayson, if you had heard of, I can't think of his name. I just said it. Apologetics Roadshow.
Yes.
Okay, because like what you're describing is similar to him himself is, and he actually one of his little ones. He had 2 boys. One of them just passed, but he's not able to experience emotions.
You're talking about David something, right? He does a lot of
Yes.
anti-Muslim stuff.
What's his last name, Scott?
I can't think of it right now.
David Wood.
Wood.
That's it.
Wood. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a sociopath, so he also can't
Right.
experience emotions.
Right.
We have it is different to a degree, basically in how we interact with people. Sociopaths don't generally take the effort to mimic. So I spent my life mimicking. Like I was only diagnosed once as a child, and then decided I didn't want to be diagnosed again. So I went to the library and read, and then I learned how to mimic people and fake emotions, and got my diagnosis changed.
Interesting. I'm just curious if you had heard of him, because that his coming has more to do, I think, on the logical side of things rather than, like a emotional response to any kind of supernatural thing. It's more of this, again, like with Greg Coco, it's a reason. It explains
Hey,
reality.
Rosie,
the best way.
Scott's TV is just a blaring.
Yeah, someone's
I know. That's why I was trying to talk really fast and then mute.
Yeah, I saw
Everybody
his
welcome
screen.
Brian Newman.
Hey guys.
Hi,
Hello,
Brian.
Brian. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Go ahead with your question, Rosie, and then Stump, you have the next
I was
question.
done. I
Oh,
was
okay.
done.
So Stump, it's your go.
Oh yeah, Grace, you said you're not able to experience emotions like empathy and things like that.
That's
Is that
correct.
right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I know you said you were, you searched for God, you couldn't find him. I think what Scripture says is that the carnal mind is enmity against God, and I think if you don't able to express emotions or feel empathy, that's the definition of a carnal mind, like a very carnal mind.
Well,
that might be the problem. Well, I mean, what happened in the past?
I mean, it was the way I was born, so there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. So in that scenario, I guess I could have never found God.
Yeah,
You
I'm
could
just
pray
thinking.
over it.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
could ask him.
No, I agree.
some people would say that's your mind is a place where spirits inhabit. I think that's true, whether it's good or bad. So I don't know if you say there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think that's true. But I just when you said you can experience any emotions, that brought Scripture to mind that says that the carnal mind is enmity against God. And
I mean, you
think
can
that's
research
why
it
you
if you
couldn't
like.
find them.
I mean,
So-
I
say
don't.
again?
There's no medical way or any way anyone knows to make someone with my condition feel emotions.
Hi, Grayson.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
Brian. I have some mental health training and some other training experience. Are you dealing with like sociopathy or
I was diagnosed with
autism, or what are you dealing with?
antisocial personality disorder. I was diagnosed as a child.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's I will find him for you real quick. There's actually a very famous apologist who is born with that. He's super famous. But the soul is the mind, will, and emotions, not just the emotion. So those are all 3 ways of experiencing God, plus the spirit and then the physical world. But there's also the emotions are stronger or weaker in some people, and the mind is stronger or weaker in some people, and the will is stronger or weaker in some people. And then the spirit and the faith are varying levels in some people too. And some people's, physical encounters are stronger or weaker. Let me find this guy's name for you real quick, because he actually has an entire podcast on.
And does he claim to currently feel emotion?
Yeah,
Or,
he
I
doesn't.
mean-
He actually tried to kill his father with a hammer when he was like 15
You're
years
thinking
old.
of David Wood, and David Wood does
That's
not.
who I just mentioned.
Yeah, David Wood still does not feel emotion.
Yeah, David Wood. Yeah, that's David Wood.
He is a Christian, but he's still not so on an emotional level. I mean, he does not still have normal human emotions.
Right. Yeah. But it doesn't. There's nowhere in the Bible I've seen that you have to have that.
Right. I would agree with you. I was just talking about what Stump was thinking out loud there a minute ago.
Okay.
We were just
But
talking,
I guess my videos are apologetics. But yeah, it's I have a mental health support group too. If you consider that something you need support with, some people don't. Some people like me have very intense emotions and wish they didn't. So we're just
Amen
opposite
to that.
ends of the spectrum. But some people say, "Well, Brian, you're not
Amen.
happy all the time." My salvation's been questioned because I don't smile enough. I'm too sad to be saved. Apparently, according to numerous people in ministry, I'm too sad to be saved, and you might be too calm to be saved, according to them.
I'd be willing to bet that most of your mega church pastors are probably sociopaths or antisocial personality disorder, because the ability to manipulate people and take their money without regret. I mean, I was a great preacher when I was preaching because I knew how to influence people's emotions. I just did not experience them.
Well, yeah, a lot of people get out of prison and become very famous ministers for those very reasons.
I know one.
Yeah,
Well,
not
it
all of them
happens
are out
all
for
the
your
time.
money, though.
The conscience is different from the emotion. The conscience is not an emotional experience. Conscience is the spirit speaking to you. And it might
I brought
not
up
be
mega
through,
pastors.
it might be through
Do not.
fear or constant logical cause and effect or whatnot, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's all different.
I did post a link to the Apologetics Virtual YouTube channel.
I mean,
too.
I would offer you some context, Brian, into Grayson's history, but I'm not sure if he wants it out there for just anyone. But at the same time, he did publicly go over it on YouTube while we was live.
Yeah, I have no shame in my history.
So he used to be a pastor of a church for 5 years, actually went through a seminary, and he just couldn't ever find proof that God existed. And he is now into another religion. It's a very personal religion, and he has actually had conversations with his new God, and he acknowledges that we all have to accept it would be demonic, but he does not believe that to be the case. So now we know what we're all working with.
Who is this?
It's all me. He's talking about
Mr. Grayson.
Yeah, that's Grayson.
Oh, okay. So you
missed an awful lot on that phone call, Ryan.
I know.
We would consider it a pagan religion, or worshiping demons or idols or something.
So, are you polytheist or Gnostic, or how would you describe yourself?
I believe in a single sustainer of our reality. So I don't know.
Luciferian, though?
No. I mean, like I said, it's a personal religion. So essentially, it's I don't know. Like you could, for all intents and purposes, I could have invented it.
So you basically say you're your own individual spirit guide.
It's not necessarily individual anymore, but yes, for most purposes.
Hey, Brian,
I'm just trying to say what you're saying.
You don't happen to know any of the demon names, do you? Besides the usual.
Oh, I know a few. I don't really dabble in that because I believe I have a kind of ancient Near Eastern mindset where if you speak of something, you empower it. So I try to be super careful not to resurrect the memory anymore.
Right.
I know a little bit about how some things work.
Yeah, I'd rather not hear the names.
So, but I get what you're saying. You had a personal encounter with a spiritual being that you do not. It was not Yahweh, or Yeshua, but it was some other entity you had a personal encounter with.
And I accept
you believe that you did not be able to access Yahweh or Yeshua.
And I should have been more clear. It's goddess.
Okay.
That's a female.
I would use the word female, but strictly speaking, it's probably not accurate. But
it function, not gender.
Correct. Right.
Okay, I got you. I get what you're saying. Is it Sophia or?
I mean, I'm familiar with the Gnostic religions from when I was in Bible college. I mean, we studied them to a bit. But I'm not strictly a Gnostic. Yeah.
Okay, I used to be.
I don't believe. Yeah, you did. I mean, I a lot of things I believe could, I guess, have some similarities to Gnosticism, but I guess they also have similarities to regular Christianity. Like I said, on a moral grounding, I think there are a lot of things we agree on, but there are certain things we would disagree on.
Okay.
Can I ask you?
I really want to ask him a question first, Rosy, and then I'll let you go next.
Okay.
So, Grayson, you mentioned earlier how your God could be considered more fair because your God doesn't punish. Did I hear that correctly?
I mean, we can use the word fair, but yeah, I did say that she doesn't punish. She rewards. She gives life. She doesn't take it away.
There's no scenario where she punishes?
She could stop you from going to reality, to base reality. So I suppose that could be a punishment. If for some reason you are incapable of being refined or following moral certainty, yeah, I suppose, but I don't know how it would be a punishment.
would you say that would affect their afterlife? When you say they're elevated, well, I'm sorry, was it elevated reality or?
I don't think that we live in base reality. So I think that we are in all what science today would probably call I'm struggling for the word, a nurture simulation. So essentially, we're children being raised on how to properly live.
Okay, so what do you do with rapists and murderers? If your God doesn't punish, do they get a smaller reward for it? And I don't mean that offensively, but
No, I understand.
It's
I
a really
agree.
weird reality.
As I said earlier, morally horrible or morally bad things that need to be punished. So I don't say that these things won't be punished. And likely they'll be refined or they'll be denied access to reality. Because I believe
do you
that people
believe that refinement happens now in the real flesh, or do you believe that refinement is in the afterlife?
I don't believe in an afterlife. I believe that they will go through the simulation again and again and again until they are refined or discarded.
Do you believe
similar to
existence
Buddhism,
will ever
the
cease?
Wheel of karma.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, my God, so your God doesn't necessarily have an enemy, where my God would, to an extent, the same enemy that we as humans have, which is entropy. So reality exists. It is what it is. Even base reality suffers from entropy, and it is the only enemy that any God need fight.
But if everything's a simulation, why does anything really matter?
Good point. So it's basically nihilism at that point.
Exactly.
That's what I've gathered.
Hey, Grayson.
I missed everything as you said after. I don't know. Yeah, I lagged. I complained about it.
Yeah. In your religion, does this world's existence ever cease? Will it ever cease?
Yes.
What happens then?
It begins again.
How?
God will restart it. How else?
How many times do you believe that this has happened?
Innumerable.
When a universe is created, do you think it's your goddess that is creating the universes?
Yes.
Like this one?
Did you just attribute this to your goddess, or did your goddess communicate this idea to you?
We talked about it. Yes. Like I said, these are not ideas that I had ever had previously.
So is it Kali or Vashti, or is it something similar, where it's a destruction and rebirth cycle? But Kali punishes. So obviously, that wouldn't be what you're referring to,
right? And I don't. And they believe that reality itself is sort of that we are in base reality and that we are temporary. I think that would be immoral. I think that if people were here involuntarily and suffering involuntarily and suffering especially from gratuitous evil, that is bad. That there is no justification for that unless they consent to do so.
So the reason I guess follow the way, which is maybe an ancient term for original Christianity or the faith of Abraham, would be it's the only way I found that you can have both justice and mercy simultaneously. Because every other faith would err on one side or the other, and without justice, you can't have love, really. Because it says whatever terrible thing happened to you, that doesn't matter. And then something the being says, well, it doesn't matter what happened to you. Then there's no love in that. But it also requires justice to be meted out. So, but mercy and justice have to be both existent, something to be true, I guess, to me. So that's the only way I found there's both justice and mercy simultaneously, because otherwise you have a faith with one without the other on either side. I struggle with that.
I mean, when it comes to Christianity, it depends on your answer to this question. Is there eternal perdition?
Oh, I'm a annihilationist. I think there is a set punishment for each individual of varying intensities, but I don't think it lasts forever and ever. But also, you would be outside of time. So all the person would know is some form of separation from all that is good for some period of time, and then they would cease to be. They would cease to exist. And at some point in the future, the entire spirit rolls out of space-time, but outside space-time. But at some point in the future, as we know time, evil and suffering and death would all cease to exist. Because you have a hell that never ever ends. At some point, somewhere in the universe, there is always suffering, and I think the point is we started out without suffering, and it will eventually cycle around to the point of there is no suffering once again. There is no suffering, not a never ending thing. What's that?
That's a very interesting defense that you have of annihilation. I haven't heard that one before.
Annihilationism. Yeah, I mean, it's common, the kind of ancient Middle Eastern view of everything, but we've taken on a lot of Greco-Roman thought, because in the beginning, Satan was the one that said your soul will live forever. If God makes it immortal or not, it's going to live forever according to Satan. God said they're going to die. Jesus basically said, the only way to immortality is him. He didn't quantify immortality in a wonderful existence close to God, or like in Judaism, a terrible existence far from God. But the only way to immortality is if he grants it to you. We're not created immortal. We have to be given immortality. So we're not created immortal unless we accept immortality from a higher being, then we're going to perish eventually.
I would agree with that.
Bodily and in the spirit world, we're going to perish eventually unless the Creator grants us immortality.
I don't necessarily agree with that view, but I do find that that is a really, I think your arguments are strong and something to consider. But
I have actually heard of that view. I find it interesting. Not sure if I agree with it or not. I maybe one night, maybe somebody can do some research and present the different views on hell, because there are different.
I'm gonna have to brush up on it myself, but from my memory, I believe Missing Maud in the comments is correct. I believe it mentioned that we would. Well, not we. I don't want to be a part of that crowd, but the ones who perish will be there with Satan and the fallen angels forever and ever.
Well, the fire is forever and ever, but the person actually, Satan and angels are actually immortal.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you how you justify that verse. Let me say that I like what you're saying, and I would say that in that scenario, I would say that God could be. I would not see if annihilation was true. I don't think that. I would say the Christian God, could perhaps be called just. However, if eternal perdition is true, in no scenario could I be convinced that God is just.
Sin for 80 years, suffer for 80 million trillion.
Correct.
Math would be a little off on that.
Even monsters, even moral monsters, shouldn't suffer for eternity for finite crimes.
Yeah, I used to have that grapple with that issue myself, and I've heard people explain it by saying that if you commit a sin against an immortal being, then you must be punished for immortality. You must forever and ever, because the being you sinned against is immortal. I heard that argument.
Yeah, that's the one I know.
It's because the sin you committed was against an immortal being, and so you must be punished forever and ever and ever for your sin. I mean, I don't know. That's something that can be debated.
I will tell you this, Grayson, that this type of aspect of Christianity is what we all call an in-house argument. We may not all agree on it, but it is not a salvific issue. It's not a core salvific issue.
No, I would agree. I think you all would say that the only salvific issue is just saying that, believing that Jesus Christ died for your sins and rose again on the third day, and so forth.
Yeah, he's coming back.
Correct, and then from there having a personal relationship with him, and thus that would lead to salvation. Nothing that you've done, but what he did.
Right.
Correct. Someone has to. It's justice. Someone has to pay for what was done. Either we will do it ourselves, or he will do it. But it doesn't just magically go away. It doesn't disappear. It's like it's not overlooked and forgotten, because that would be a lack of love. Say, this person beat you to death, and murdered all your children. Well, that's okay. We'll forget that happened. That would be difficult. So either the murderer takes the consequences, or someone else does. But the crime itself has to be addressed.
And do you think that mental illness, let's say that guy who beat you to death or whatever, he did it because he has a tumor that causes him to not be in control of his faculties. Is he still culpable?
So I think there's a lot of areas in life, having worked in mental illness, for example, is that we are judged by the light we are given. And so like even people, other religions, they have different levels of understanding God has shown them, and he will judge them by the light they were given as far as spiritually. And it is not my decision who goes to hell and goes to heaven. That is, he is judges perfectly by the light these people have been given. But the more knowledge you have, or the more revelation you have, the more consequences you experience.
Right.
So it might not be black or white, does it heaven or hell, but it might be like how severe is the punishment. Like if a 40-year-old perfectly sane person does this, would their punishment in the afterlife be worse than a mentally retarded person? I would say decidedly so. But I think somewhere it's still a crime and somehow it's still is taken care of. But I'm
But at
not.
the same
About
time,
different levels of
I guess.
punishment according to the measure of sin of rejecting him.
well, I think there's certain crimes that there's no way to commit them as a sane person. So, for example, if you murder someone in cold blood, especially if you do something grotesque like, dismember the body or fornicate with the dead body, that's there's no sane way to do that. So I think 100% of those people are in some way mentally ill. Not that it excuses their actions or means that they shouldn't go to jail or anything like that. It's just they, in my mind, they have to be mentally ill because there's no sane way to do that.
Well, the Egyptian priests usually had to rape the prettier mummies, so they would start taking the females and leaving their bodies to rot in the sand because it was so prevalent, this culture of it. And I think some kind of degree level of insanity and demon possession and drug use, because they did a lot of this Blue Lotus, especially low grade cocaine. But is the person responsible? Maybe not as much for the action if they are insane, but they voluntarily made themselves insane, mentally, chemically, or spiritually insane. Or are they responsible for inducing the insanity that led to the action?
That's
Right. And
interesting.
Jesus also says that he did not come for the righteous, but for the sick.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Right, no one's righteous. We all. It's like the analogy of trying to swim from North Carolina, try to swim from New York to England. One person swims 5 miles, one person swims 50 miles. Both of them drown.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, both of them drown, unless there's a lifeboat that's sent by a third party, God, that both of them drown.
Right.
Yeah, my
So can I
feelings
make a
on
little
punishment.
antagonistic with my next question?
Mhm.
So this
Who
is
is your
something
question for?
it's just in general. Whoever wants to answer it, pipe up. I don't care. So I often hear in debates. I'll just lay the argument out. Is there free will in heaven?
There was originally.
Will there be after Christ comes back and he takes people to heaven? Will there be free will in heaven
During 1,000 years, or like after the 1,000 years?
at any point?
I think after the 1,000 years, but see, the issue was in Garden of Eden, for example. Now, if you take this literally or as an analogy, mankind chose to be disloyal. The issue was loyalty. And Adam and Eve, they probably could walk through water, or walk on water, walk through walls, levitate, do everything Jesus could do after the resurrection. I think Adam and Eve could do all that. But when they showed the character they had and the loyalty they had to the Creator did not match the abilities they had been given, they lost those abilities and dying and pain and childbirth, all this stuff. So I think the 1,000 years, there's still freedom of choice, but God would not grant us immortality unless our character had been transformed to the character of someone that could be trusted with
I just come here in heaven. You have free will.
Yeah. So, but I think if you get to heaven, you've asked God to transform your character. So he will transform your character into someone who can be trusted with immortality. So it kind of overrides the free will issue because you wouldn't want to do evil. Maybe you could, but no one there would want to because their character has been transformed into the kind of person that could be trusted.
Could do it.
And I kind of
you wouldn't want to because that wouldn't be your will.
I see the lack of free will in heaven as the reward. Are you guys under the impression that that's a punishment? Because I hate free will. I hate the decisions I make with my flesh, and I absolutely cannot wait to get out of this flesh so that I can lose that free will and God can take the reins. I can't wait.
Proverbs guy. I know what
I understand that he's going to heal us from the flesh. We'll have a new nature.
Yes, that is how I look at it. I feel like because there's these and I could be wrong because I'm just a baby Christian, so to speak, but the way that I look at it is like there's these things that are expected of you in order to be worthy, and maybe those things that make you worthy sanctify you in a way that you wouldn't murder in heaven, or that you wouldn't cheat on your spouse or punch someone. Like maybe that sanctification changes your nature in a way that there's not a need for free will, or maybe
Your
even there
free
is free
will
will,
would
but
be that exactly. But we
yeah,
You
won't
guys get to
have
skip the
free will.
antagonistic second part because you don't agree there's free will in heaven. So if you don't agree there's free will in heaven, there's no problem.
I'm not entirely sure exactly what I
I think
believe
it's a paradox
for a
if you
lot of
really think
things.
about it.
I think that.
Well,
I would say that most Christians that ask this question in debates say yes. But if you don't say yes, I'm not going to force you to.
I mean,
What is there in the situation environmentally? Do you have fear? Do you have lack? Do you have any of these things that produce crime? If you're a complete liberal socialist, you would say it's all environmental, but you're in an environment where, well, there's no need to kill somebody for food because there's plenty of food. There's no need to defend yourself because no one's trying to kill you. There's no environmental factors for these things. And in Judaism, there's like the Yetzirah, the evil inclination that Paul talked about. It's not original sin. It's like a parasite or a virus. There's a virus in your body trying to compel. That's not you, but it's inside you that's trying to compel you to do harmful things. But if that virus was removed, you wouldn't have it anymore. It's like a dog with rabies. It's like when he dies, the rabies doesn't go with him. If he went to the afterlife, the rabies doesn't go with him to the afterlife. The Yetzirah, the evil inclination, the force that makes him do these selfish things is no longer inside him, forcing him to do that. He is now separated from that evil inclination. So it's not even present. So there is no desire. Once again, there's no desire. But Rosy's been trying to talk for a while. Rosie.
What's that? Oh,
sorry.
Trying to comment. Rosie, you were trying to jump in for a bit.
I don't
I
even
can't remember what I'm
remember.
trying to say. Oh, free will in heaven. I think that everyone in heaven will be there because they love Jesus and they want to spend eternity with him. So they will be there of their own free will.
God doesn't kidnap them, right?
Their free will to spend eternity with their Lord and Savior. Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, would you say that basically heaven's where God doesn't kidnap anyone and make them go there?
Oh, absolutely. Only the people that want to be with him forever will be there. Yeah.
And Judaism, the concept is, and I'm not a Jew, but nothing's wrong with it, but it's not. But so the sun is like Mercury's closest to the sun, and Pluto's the furthest away. And their concept isn't exactly different dimensions or something, but it's like if you want to be real close to God, you'll get to be Mercury, which is heaven. You're close to God, the source of all light and life. And if you don't want to be, you'll be out in Pluto, where there's no light and there's no life. Not because you're being punished, but because you don't want to be with God. And God is a source of light, life, and goodness, and that's just a natural cause and effect. If you don't want to be with God, and God is light and life, then you're wanting to be away from God, and therefore just the natural cause and effect of that is darkness and suffering, because God's not there. It's not that he's punishing you.
It's not
you didn't want to be in his presence, and you don't. And the side effects of his presence are these good things, and the side effect of his lack of his presence are these bad things, and you don't want his presence. So this is just the default setting. It's not a punishment; it's a default setting. Is there kind of
so like
force you into heaven against your will.
Yeah, divine kidnapping.
Exactly. It's like you're going to hell
Otherwise, you wouldn't be loved.
If you don't want to be with him here on earth, then he's not going to make you be with him there in heaven.
Like you're going to hell, and this is the way to not go to hell, but I'm not going to force you to turn on this path.
Right.
You can just keep going your way, but the end result is hell.
Hey, Stump. Right. Stumpy, Captain Stump.
I got 2 mutes on. What's going on?
I don't know if you're following along, but you've been quiet for a while, and I do really want to get your input on this.
I've been following. Yeah. Well, we spoke about this similar before about free will. Of
In
course, we
heaven?
have free will. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, because here we've been sanctified, right? We've been born again. We have a new mind. We no longer have a carnal mind,
Hmm.
and we're now in the spiritual mindset. And we know that Scripture says that the spiritual mind is life and peace, as opposed to the carnal mind being death, right? And we know that's what happened to Adam and Eve. They lusted and they had a carnal mind. That's how come they fell from the garden. At least that's what I understand it to be. And since Christian put it so eloquently, the carnal mind is death. When God said, "When you eat of the fruit thereof, you will certainly die," and they did die because they had a carnal mind. So yeah, you'll have a spiritual mindset, and you'll choose to do the things that works good with the well-being in heaven with God.
All right, Stump. So then, still man here. So what you're saying is, in heaven, you have free will. However, you are unable or unwilling to do sinful things.
No, you're gonna know the truth of God. You've been
Uninterrupted.
born again. You understand that the spiritual mind. That's why we're here, right? We're here to be like purified, right? We're gonna be shifted, right? The wheat from the chaff, right? The weed from the actual stalk of wheat, the good stuff, bad, and we're being shifted so we understand what we should choose good, right? That's what the whole thing was. I put before you good and evil. Choose good.
So are you saying that people will be able to distinguish between good and evil, and they will understand the consequences and the goodness of the good and the evilness of the evil? So it would just be it would be irrational choice to choose evil.
Right, I
They
mean,
would know better at this point.
In other words,
They
we
would
won't be
just know they see the consequences of it so terrible they wouldn't have a desire to go there.
we won't be stupid again like we were the first time. We should have been shifted. We should understand what's the difference between good and evil. What's the difference between the spiritual mind and the carnal mind? What's the difference between trusting yourself and trusting God?
So we wouldn't be deceived because we've seen this play out before, and we're done with it. It's like somebody's obviously been an alcoholic and they went through hell with it, and it's like, I'm done. It's not even a temptation. I've seen it, too much of it.
That's how I believe it. That's how I believe it'll be. And then wait a minute. We're going to be co-inheritors with Jesus Christ, right? This is what Scripture says. We're going to be co-inheritors with her. We're going to inherit the kingdom of God along with Jesus Christ. So what is there to turn back from? I mean, it would be silly. We could, but
you wouldn't trade the palace in for a single wide trailer. Exactly. Like going back to sin would be like
exactly. Trade the same stuff that we experienced already, right? We all experienced pain, suffering, death of loved ones, disease. We experienced all this stuff. Why would we go back?
That's a good point. It's like it's a downgrade.
You'd have to have mental illness to go back.
Yeah.
That's
and in heaven, everyone's made whole, so their mind is now working properly. They're not traumatized. They're not afraid. They're not mentally ill. Everybody's fully functioning.
And you're a son of God, right, or daughter of God, and the world, everything of this, whatever God has for you, is at your fingertips.
How could you no desire for something you can't have because it's all available?
You'd have to be out your mind to turn back, knowing all these things that we already. Once we learn and gone through the shifting, we should.
If you're no longer carnal minded, in theory, there would not be that urge to do those kinds of things that sow corruption and evil and bad things into experience. It wouldn't be
all the carnal mind. I think that's what we all should come out of. I know some churches will teach that you can stay in the carnal mind and still have life, but that strictly goes against basically goes against basic Scripture. You cannot stay in the carnal mind and have life and have Jesus Christ and have God. So, I mean, it's so simple to me. I know I've come out of a carnal mindset where I lusted after everything that moved, with a skirt on it. And now I'm living for God. I have a spiritual mind. I want to please Him. I want my prayers to be answered, so I stay right with God. And it works. It's how life should be. And I think we should all learn this lesson. And when we get to heaven, we'll know better, in other words.
Yeah.
All right. So instead of hitting him with the gotcha part of the argument, I want to ask some clarifying questions. So Adam and Eve, did they have the same free will state, or were they in a different state of mind than you think that people have free will in heaven?
Oh, you're asking me? I said, yeah, definitely they had a free will. And that free will was represented by the tree of good and evil. They could have ate from it or they couldn't eat from it. They decided to eat from it.
So then people in heaven can sin.
Sure, but why would you? I mean, you'd have to have a mental problem to understand now you're a child of God. The whole, whatever God has for you, I think Scripture says that I forgot how it goes exactly, but not understand what God has waiting for us.
No eyes seen, never ears heard. But see, Adam and Eve didn't have the experiential knowledge of the consequences that we do after 2 world wars and murder and rape and all this stuff we've witnessed. we've personally seen how terrible, what the full consequence of the choice is.
Now, to me, it seems like it would have been better of God, and I know who's me to tell God, it would have been better if simply the world were made in such a way that everyone had this free will where they would not want to sin originally. Then they were never within sin. Why? I guess why wouldn't that be the case? That just seems like a better.
It's so simple.
Love requires freedom.
God asked him to do one thing. If we take it literally or not, the Garden of Eden, one thing. You can eat of all the trees in this garden, and we know they're probably knowledge. It's probably about knowledge, not about fruit, more likely, because it was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So it's probably knowledge, right? The tree of life was there. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This one carnal tree. All these other trees, whatever they might have been, you could travel the universe. You can do this, you can do that, whatever. It was other trees there that were of knowledge, some kind of knowledge you could obtain, and it would be good stuff. You can eat of all of them. You may eat of any of them freely. All you had to do was not eat that one. That's all it was. It's so simple.
But freedom is what separates a wife from a slave.
Exactly.
He didn't want a concubine. He wanted to basically. You get freedom's what separates a wife from a concubine. And if they had no freedom, then that would not be love. That would be just a robotic.
But it sounds like in heaven you have both the freedom and the knowledge. So you have both, right?
Yes. You have the character to handle the knowledge and the power and the mortality. So you would get both. I think you would understand the consequences. Like if you're looking at a bottle of bleach and tempted to drink it for whatever stupid reason, you might do that if you're Adam and Eve phase. But if you watch someone else drink bleach and their throat rot out and they die in front of you, the temptation would go away. You could drink bleach if you wanted to, but after you've seen that happen, why in the world would you drink bleach?
Amen.
This is it reminds me of the wedding where all the best wine was kept till the all the rest was gone, and that's like our hope is it's like this is that bad wine before the actual wedding.
Oh, that's a good point. And the good wines are going to be at the end.
That is a very good point, Rosy.
Yeah, I never thought of it in that manner. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Very good.
and without the option of the choice to choose not to love God, God cannot be freely loved.
Amen.
So in heaven,
want robots.
In heaven, you couldn't not choose to love God. That's right.
You could.
Why would you want?
Why would you? That would be the question. Once you already know, you learn, right? You should have learned your lesson. The scripture says we're being refined like fine gold, right? We're being refined.
Yeah.
All the stuff's coming out of us, all the silliness and all the stupid thoughts and all the carnal minds and loving flesh when there's something much better for you. God has prepared for you. I mean, we're supposed to be refined like gold.
He who began a good work in you will complete it until the day of Christ. Yeah, He will do it, and I trust Him with it.
The debt of is everything.
Sorry. Huh?
I think that there's no way to understand and know for sure all the intricate details about the very beginning of time and humans and Adam and Eve, or what exactly heaven's going to be like when we get there. There's just no way. So somewhere in between that to bridge the gap is faith.
It would be like trying to explain calculus to a monkey. You can try all day, but it's not really. But I saw this thing about bees and how bees, flying around bees, see flowers, ultraviolet, and this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But that's how they see flowers. So imagine if you get to heaven, you can see night vision, you can see ultraviolet, you can see all the visible. You can see not just the visible light spectrum, you can see all the colors and shades of light that you can't see with human eyes, and you can hear all the sounds that you can't hear with human ears. And you can smell all the things you can't smell with the human nose. I mean, just the sensory of it would be literally undescribable.
Oh, yeah. I'll use a Ken Hovindism. It's like explaining colors to a blind man.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's just nothing to.
What do you think he calls us
blind people dream in color. People born blind can dream in color.
Wow, that's deep.
Like they'll dream about a tree, and I'll tell you what, it's like they can dream in color, but they can't explain it very well. But they can dream in color.
Yeah, no one can explain a color.
Well, you've had people who were blind, their whole lives and never saw anything, and then, with the modern advancement in technology and medicine, they can see after surgery, and then they are able to express like, oh, I did see color before.
Yeah, like you saw in a dream or they had a vision or something. But they're medically unable to do otherwise.
You guys want to hear something weird? So my girlfriend has what's called aphantasia. She can't picture anything in her mind, like when she closes her eyes or even with her eyes open. And I'm always talking to her and I'm like, honey, could you just picture da 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 da? And she'll just look at me like, no, I can't.
And she's an artist.
And she's a good artist. That's the
really good artist, professional artist.
So
Right.
could you get picture anything? Like I have a similar problem where I can't picture pictures. So if you ask me to think of a whale, I will see the letters for the word whale. I will not see a whale. I mean, I can maybe force myself to see a whale, but yeah, that's just how my brain works. But so you're saying
I'm the
you have to think of a whale? What's she see? Nothing.
Okay, so we had to print out exercises for her to do to try to picture things, and she's just now barely getting to a point where she can picture like just color.
Wow, that's hard.
So she's made progress.
True. Maybe one day she'll see more. I can't imagine not seeing. So I see very visually. I can picture anything in my mind and see the most intricate details. If it's something that I've smelt before, I can smell it almost as if I'm literally smelling it. If I've tasted it before, I can almost taste it. If I've ever smelled it but never tasted it, I can almost guess that taste. So my imagination is extremely overactive.
You have a seer anointing. You can sensory experience a prophetic message as well.
That would be a very interesting conversation to get more deeply into one day.
Yeah, there's some people who have I forgot the word for it, but there is a condition, I've met people have this, where they can actually see music, like it appears as different shapes and colors as you play it.
Yes.
And there's sudden, that's it, and sudden savant syndrome, sudden musical savant syndrome. This guy was in a coma, wakes up, never played an instrument in his life. On the way home to the hospital, his mom took him by the music shop, sits down to the piano and the violin and plays Beethoven and Bach and everybody else under the sun.
Amazing.
He says he just sees the keys in his brain and knows where to put his fingers. He just sees it as it progresses in his brain, sees the strings in his brain, knows where to put the fingers. Sudden savant syndrome, but that's level holy of an Exodus were slaves their entire life. We talked about this before. And God zaps them with the ability to suddenly make the world's first superconductor that we're aware of. Gold and silver and yarn and, all these different fabrics that take 30, 40 years to master. They suddenly got zapped. They knew how to build everything for the tabernacle and then teach others how to do it. So these slaves are making bricks for 400 years. All of a sudden, they're making basically a superconductor out of gold that got electricity running around it, and it zaps people dead to get too close. So it's like a sudden savant syndrome. So I think when you get to heaven, like our brains are functioning barely 10%, and we're oxygen deprived. We're in an environment completely oxygen deprived, and they were born, and the chemicals and all the rest of it. But if you're even in an environment that's got enough oxygen, then you're going to be doing things like that. So I think they just kind of got zapped with a little bit of what heaven is like. Just a little tiny portion of their brain got transformed into heavenly realm instead of earthly realm. Just so other people could see what that would be like. Because your brain would have to be completely rearranged to even comprehend it. Even on the sound level or the sight level or the smell level, your brain would have to be completely repaired and re-engineered to even have a comprehension of it. One part of it.
Who did this happen to?
What's that?
Who did this happen to?
There's several people in history, but recently in NPR, National Public Radio, they interviewed this guy. It's called a sudden musical savant syndrome. There's one guy with autism. They flew him in a helicopter over the New York skyline, took him back home. He made like a 30-foot long drawing of the New York skyline, the number of windows, and everything's perfectly accurate because his brain is so hyper-focused on that. It tunes out all the communication part, and that communication part gets taken over by visualization or memorization. So he can Charlotte's, New York,
Photographic
opening
memory.
up the windows and perfect placement. And my dad worked at the mental hospital in the 70s, and there was people there, and several of them were. So June 1st, the year 325. Oh, that's a Saturday. Before you can finish the sentence, they will tell you what day of the week it was, because they did the calculation in their head. Can't feed themselves
Wow.
because their brain is entirely consumed with this one thing.
Wow.
Anyway, that's my little rant.
Hey, brothers and sisters, I gotta go. So good night. I'll talk with you guys soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Night,
Good night, Tom. Yeah, it's about time for me too.
Good night, Ryan.
Good night, Ryan.
Good night, you
Did you
guys.
ask Ryan when he started to wake when he started thinking this way? I mean, this is a question from Missing Maud, Brian.
What's that? What did she say?
Not Ryan, but Brian.
Oh, okay.
So I'm kind of catch up. Stefan, the missing mod. What's the question?
Says, would you ask Brian when he started to wake up? When he started thinking this way? I mean, like when did you? I guess.
Become a weirdo. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been
Like us.
strange since I was 14. So when I was 14, I lived in a cabin that should have been condemned. Actually, it literally fell apart shortly after we moved out. So poor, I didn't have my shoes, fell apart every night. I had to glue my shoes back together, pick up beer cans for lunch money. Didn't have a television. Well, I had television sometimes, 3 channels. Internet wasn't invented yet. Didn't have a phone. Couldn't go any further than we could walk. This is always the thing. Library's an hour away. Bookstore's 2 hours away. So dirt poor, way off in the backwoods, town without a traffic light. But for some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to sit in the back of the room at study hall and read through the encyclopedia and figure out which Greek word meant what, like photography, biology, and start making a big notebook of this. So I was just weird. And I was 14. My mom died. Her preacher gave me Greek English New Testament, and I started trying to go word for word back and forth and started realizing that what you're taught in church isn't really completely 100% accurate sometimes, or it's just completely missing a lot of context. And my 8th grade teacher gave me a Bible, so I started reading. I read from Genesis to Revelation 3 times, completely through, and that messed my head up a lot. And so that's something that's about when that kind of started, with just looking at things entirely differently. But when I was like 10 or 12, I don't know why, but I was laying in bed and I felt like God would give me something I've asked for it, which is like first time I had in my life, maybe 1 or 2 times. Because I prayed for a whole lot of things that didn't happen. Asked for love and wisdom. And I think that's what happened about that age. I asked for love and wisdom. And God's spirit is either 7 spirits of God, or God's spirit has 7 aspects, like a menorah. There's a spirit of wisdom, a spirit of knowledge, a spirit of understanding, and there's different spirits. And the spirit of wisdom or the spirit of understanding. The knowledge is the fact. Understanding is being able to elaborate on the fact and see what's going on. Wisdom is how this fact fits with other facts, how it all ties together. So I think there's a spirit of wisdom or a spirit of understanding, and I have one of those 2. I don't know which one it is specifically, but I have one of those 2. And it's kind of like a supernatural thing where things make sense to me that sound totally insane to other people, but at the end of the day, it's actually accurate. But I was in special ed for math for 5 years. Can't multiply a fraction. I failed 11th grade, failed 1st grade, dropped out of high school. And my school listed me as mentally retarded. I also can't bake a cake, change oil in a car, program a VCR. Can't do a whole lot of really simple things. So my theory is I'm actually mentally retarded, and there's some kind of supernatural force that shows me things that other people don't catch for some reason. But it's not supernatural, because of my own natural ability. I'm pretty much an idiot in most every way.
I think there's a good chance I'm slightly autistic. Don't feel terrible, Brian.
Yeah, the only autistic
Right.
it's just I can't do simple normal things that most people can do. It's just insanely complicated to me. Like, try to change on the car, you can show me 300 times. Probably not going to remember it. But I can understand. I can try to tell you what this is mistranslated here in the Bible, and this is accurate. It's weird.
That's the Holy
It's
Spirit.
supernatural intervention, because I can't do other things that are extremely simple. Good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fascinating, Brian. Yeah, I do have work in the morning. I'm going to go ahead and head out. God bless all of y'all. I'm blessed to know all of y'all.
You too, Ryan. Have a good night, buddy.
God bless, Ryan.
Good night. Good night.
Does that answer your question, Maud? Oh, I see. Yeah, a Solomon moment. I actually have an incredible weakness for things I don't need to know about and for foreign women. It's a mixed blessing. You know, any single Puerto Ricans, let me know.
Hey, Brian, do you want to put your Facebook link in the private chat? Because I think Kay wanted to carry on a conversation with you.
Okay. Oh, let me figure this out. Okay, private chat, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll try both and put comments. People add me all the time. For about a week, and then I don't know how to do the comments on here. I can do the private chat, but it won't let me type in comments.
And we're going to try to make a better try at keeping up with the chat too, but man, does the chat get carried away, and we have a whole conversation in here we're trying to focus on too. So the best thing for people to do is just to come on the show if they want to like have a long dialogue with us. Otherwise, we're going to have to just by default miss a lot of whatever you're wanting to convey.
Okay, Kay, I put a link that might be what you're looking for. Oh, speaking of, have you guys ever heard of Akiane? I think Karmarik. She's like 5 years old, atheist family in Russia. Wakes up one day and starts painting pictures of Jesus and the universe and all kinds of things. So like a master adult level at 5 years old.
I have not.
It's amazing. She was on Oprah and all kinds of stuff. I'm just posted the link to Sorry, I thought I posted a link. So I posted a link to my website, and then there's a little video she has on that. But anyway, I'm trying again. But she is absolutely amazing. I don't care what you believe. It's supernatural what this kid can do with paint when she was younger. Now she's like 30 years old. But yeah, I posted a YouTube video of her painting. She said she kept having visions of Jesus in atheist Russia as a child, and then someone showed up at her door as a handyman, like fixing stuff, and he looked just like the guy in the visions. So she painted him, and it's like extremely professional and beyond professional painting from like a 5 or 6 year old at the time, who had never had an art lesson in her life. Her parents had to go buy her paint because she'd never painted before. But anyway, it's super cool. But just weird thing for Kay, because sometimes people experience the supernatural world in a very sensory way. And at some point, they got merged with the prophet in the Old Testament, but it used to be its own standalone gifting.
What did?
The seer anointing. Or like, you not just get like, thus saith the Lord, but you got to, okay, I was transported to Jerusalem and I smelled the donkey poop. And this is what was happening when I got there.
Is it? I just wonder if that's similar to the things that I've experienced too, because I've been, I don't go around like boasting about it or anything. I'm actually a little bit timid about sharing it, but I've had visions and I've had dreams and stuff like you're talking about since I was 5.
Oh, wow.
And I never put it together until I was 28, and I had the audacity to ask God to show me his glory. And he did. So, and it wasn't even until 10 years after that happened that I opened the Bible, and like it was as if he had poured oil all over me supernaturally when I started reading it. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, hey guys, we're going on over 2 hours. I think I'm going to wrap this up. This will be time. Wow. There's Mr. Bruce. Bruce, I was just wrapping up, bud, but we've really been wanting you to come back.
Yeah, I've been slammed with work, 10-hour days. So,
do you work on Tuesday?
Oh, I just saw your live. I jumped on. We got an interesting subject going.
Do you work Tuesday, Bruce?
There she is.
Can you hear me,
Can
Bruce?
I hear you?
Let me interrupt a second for Bruce answers. Bruce, it's nice to meet you. And guys, I'm going to call it a night. Thanks for letting me come and be a dissenting voice. You guys have a good night.
Hey,
You too,
Grayson,
Good
we'll
night,
be having
Grayson.
another.
Good to
We'll
talk
be
with
having another one of these panels Tuesday night, Grayson. I hope you come back.
All right. Thank you. I'll give it a shot if I'm around. Have a good one.
All right, brother.
You too.
Yeah.
Never mind. He's gone.
Yeah, Bruce, we definitely want you to come back, but we were just wrapping up. Will you be free Tuesday night?
What time? Central time.
Central time, I would say 7
You're an hour
o'clock.
behind us.
All right.
But we'll run for several hours. But no, a few of us have wondered how you've been, and we've been trying to get you invites because we've really wanted you to come back.
Well, amen. It's good to be wanted and good to be seen. Good to see you guys, of course.
Now, I got a question for you, Steve. Ryan is doing my interview at 5 o'clock on Sunday. I presume that's going to be a live stream, but it's just going to be the two of us with people in the audience if they want to ask questions or whatever. That's my presumption. I have no idea. But is that on your channel?
I can set that on my channel. I actually didn't know it was going to be on this channel until yesterday, which is fine. No problem whatsoever. I just thought it was going to be set up on your side. So I will set it up right now.
Yeah, he wanted that on yours.
That's fine.
Yeah, he always has trouble trying to get into the Google Meet because he's doing it from his phone and there's a lot less settings. Why Bruce is making some really funny faces over there. You're making me laugh.
I look funny.
What do you do?
What do I do? Like for work?
Well, I thought you just got off work, so I was just curious.
Oh,
You were
yeah.
all-
I'm a sales contractor for a few different internet companies. So we sell the internet. I was wanted to log on the other night. The place I was staying has a nice view of Des Moines, Iowa. So it's a very nice community out here. It's a privilege to work out here compared to where Stump lives in Chicago.
Yeah, imagine. Gee whiz. I didn't know it was Chicago. I can see that, though. That's why I gave you that thumbnail, Steve.
Oh, is that what the thumbnail was for?
Yeah.
I thought you were
guess
just
you
showing
didn't
it
put
off.
in a loop.
I'm setting it right
Oh.
now, and I'm about to download that thumbnail, and I'm going to use it, and it's all
night.
gravy.
Good night, Chris. I guess you left. I'm about to get off of here, too.
Guys, I just
Oh,
wanted
there
to come
she is.
on to tell you all good night and have a good evening and everything, and thanks for having me.
Come back Tuesday, Bruce.
I will, guys. Have a blessed night.
Or
You too.
Sunday at 5 p.m. if you want to hear a long-winded testimony.
What time now? Sunday?
5. Sunday at 5.
Is that
It
like
won't
the day?
be-
That's the day after tomorrow, right?
Yeah, but it won't be like everybody joining. It'll just be Brian and I and anybody who wants to be in the audience. Because it's one-on-one interview.
I'll try and find your channel here, Rosy.
Hey, can you get Missing Maud on? I was trying to send her my Facebook link, but I can't do it in the
You guys
comments.
have a good night.
Good night.
Missing
Which
mod,
Where's-
I'll keep it open a couple
She's
more
still
minutes,
here.
but you can click the link and
Ooh. See
Yeah,
what you
it's not
should
letting me.
title these.
I'm
You know what?
technologically challenged. Or can you
Missing
guys
Maud-
just forward it to her?
a missing mod. I legitimately just don't have time to title these correctly and put names. I wish I could. I'm telling you, the ministry
And you
stuff I'm
didn't
already
put my
doing
name.
is a second full-time job.
Not my name. You didn't put my picture up on your thumbnail, so I'm just so sad.
I just used your thumbnail to create the upcoming event.
I know, but like you have everybody else's like picture on the generic thumbnail, and I was giving you a hard time.
Oh, I didn't have one set for this one yet.
Yeah, but they automatically do show up.
Let me see here.
there is a default thumbnail. Even
Yeah,
Pastor
I
Chuck
know
is
what you're
still on
talking
it.
about.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
Okay, so Missing Mod, Stephen and Rosie have my Facebook link. They can send it to you.
If she was either had us all blocked or her account was deleted for a while. So if I can correspond with her, I will send it her way, Brian.
Thanks, buddy.
Brian, I sent you a link to her
YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. I was trying to subscribe. So I went to the Flintstone School of Technology instead of the Jetson School of Technology.
And Chris, if you want to add me on Messenger, whenever I send out everybody's invites for these panel shows, I can send you one also. And Brian's info is in the private chat as well. The next show we're doing, I guess it's going to be Ryan interviewing Rosy Sunday. Monday night, it's Let's Talk Shalom with Brian and I, and we are going to be interviewing a publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's Tuesday night.
I sent you a messenger request.
Okay, excellent. And Brian, I will get your information to Missing Mod.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to ask you about something later too, Stephen.
Okay, you want to do that in Messenger, or would you like me to just end them broadcast?
After broadcast, you can just call me or broadcast or however you